There we go. So recording this session just to make sure that you can review the content. You can actually also share this with your fundraising committee, your communications team, even your executive director and board to really showcase how they can actually use these best practices as well. So you'll receive the recording and the slide deck following today's presentation. So if you miss something or we kind of drive through something really quickly, no worries at all. We'll be able to send that out to you following the presentation. Also, if you have questions throughout the webinar, feel free to drop those in the questions pane of GoToWebinar. We'll try to dig into those throughout the presentation, but most likely get to most questions that you have at the end during the live Q&A. So we're going to spend the next 20 or 30 minutes really diving through the 11 tips. I even have 3 bonus tips for you, and then we'll dive into questions. For those that are just joining us, this webinar is really presented by Cosvox. And here at Cosvox, we're focused on helping good flourish. And what we do is we focus on building a suite of online fundraising tools that really help you create, manage, and promote your fundraising campaigns without more staff or increasing your budget. And our tools are really designed to help with a variety of fundraising campaigns throughout the year, especially year end and giving days like the one we had earlier this week. And as you look ahead to 2018, how you can actually manage your fundraising campaigns more effectively and even reach new donors with the power of peer-to-peer fundraising. At the end of today's presentation, Rob Wu, who's our CEO here at Cosvox, is going to jump on with us and actually showcase some of the learnings that he's seen from our customers and how they use Cosvox to power their year-end fundraising. So if you're interested in about Cosvox's fundraising tools, stick around towards the end after the Q&A, and Rob's going to join us to really share how our customers use Cosvox to power their online fundraising. So this is a little agenda where we're going. We're going to really talk about why December matters, but also why the last 2 weeks really count. We're going to dive through 11 ways to boost your email results. And then we're going to talk about year-end subject lines to try, and we'll have a live Q&A. You guys ready? Let's dig in. So December is crucial, and I talked a little bit about this in the invite that I sent. And so I know you guys understand this because you responded and you're here today. But in 2014, and the trend actually continues, I haven't updated this slide, is that 30 to 35% of annual giving actually occurs in December. That's a third of all charitable giving is going to happen in the next 31 days, 32 days, which is a huge opportunity for you. And even more so, the last 3 days of the year, there's 12% of annual giving happens. That's because people are trying to take advantage of charitable tax donation or charitable donation, and just be able to kind of balance their budgets. And really kind of at year end, it's the kind of a season of generosity, and so they're excited and more people give. So those last 3 days of the year are crucial. But the world that we fundraise in has really just fundamentally changed, and it's rapidly changing all the time. And we see that there's really 3 components of how the environment that you're fundraising in today has just fundamentally shifted. And those 3 things are the consumers or your supporters, your communities that you're trying to reach out to for support during December are more digital first, and they're always connected. So things like social media, just the digital revolution, the adoption of the smartphone, those trends have actually shifted just how people consume content, how they find content, and how they connect with others and share the content that they're consuming. And when I say content, what I'm referring to for you guys is really the causes they care about. So it's not that they're just on digital and social media sharing about what they're doing on Friday night or how they watch Stranger Things, or how they binged on Stranger Things, but they're also sharing about the causes that they care about. They're really using this as kind of their identity on how they showcase what they support, what they care about, who they care about, and why. And on top of that, their digital first is that more and more people are opening emails on mobile. And so making sure your emails are optimized for mobile is going to be crucial. And we're going to dive into that in a little bit. The second shift is that people are focused more on relationships and are recommendations driven. So what we've seen based on kind of this booming connectivity is that there also is this increased competition for attention, which is our third point. And what that's resulted in is more and more people building kind of what I call a moat around themselves, where they're really focused on only listening and only keeping or only focusing and paying attention to the things that matter to them, which are their friends, families, and those brands and organizations that have really been let into their circle. In addition to that, more people are turning to their peers or their friends for recommendations. So, what people are giving to. We saw a huge representation of this on Giving Tuesday. I had so many of my friends and family members that were showcasing what organization they were supporting. And because they're inside the wall, like inside the grounds of the moat that I've built around me, I am more likely to look into those causes. And I actually discovered a lot of new causes that I wasn't aware of before. And so this isn't just reserved to where we should go for dinner and looking at Yelp or, looking at reviews on hotels or travel sites or restaurants, but it's also down to giving and causes at year end. And so this really requires you to rethink how you go about fundraising. And specifically, what we're going to talk about today is rethinking how you approach email fundraising. And that really leads us into this idea of 11 ways to boost your email results. And so I'm going to dive through these, and there's actually 14 because I just couldn't limit the list to 11 because I've just come up with other ideas and seen other ideas and best practices play out. So we're going to push through these, and some of them might be relevant to your organization, others may not. But I wanted to include these because it really showcases kind of the most important things when it comes to fundraising emails. Let's dive in. So the first tip that we've seen drive increased results in year-end fundraising emails is segmentation. And segmentation is kind of this like dirty, ugly word that usually just means more work. And so when I talk to friends that are in fundraising, I'm like, oh, do you segment your audience? And they're like, they just groan and kind of moan that just means they have to do more work. The interesting thing, though, is that segmentation actually is important because it drives more results. Segmentation allows you to kind of customize your tone and the information to a smaller target. And so when you're emailing a smaller group of people, you can change how the copy and the tone is written to resonate more directly with that audience. And I'm going to share some different groups of audiences that you could segment by in just a moment. The other thing it does is showcases that you're actually thinking about your audience and that you know the state of the relationship that you have with them. What we see in today's kind of changing landscape is that relationships are actually more important than anything else. And so you as an organization want to build long-term relationships with your supporters. And segmentation is kind of a way for you to showcase that you're paying attention to the relationship and you value that with each of your supporters. And so that you have a different message and a different tone with those long-term supporters. Those that have just walked into your store and maybe donated for the first time as a nonprofit, when a donor gives the first time, it doesn't mean that they're a supporter now. It really just means that they were inspired to give, and it's your job now to really cultivate that relationship. It's kind of like a first date. And so making sure that you customize your tone and your messages, especially around year-end giving, is super important, and it will increase and boost your email results. So here's a few different ways that you can segment your audiences. One is how your donors were acquired. So segmenting based on acquisition channel. So if you acquired new donors at an event this year that you hosted, making sure you reference that. You're beginning where the relationship is and you're driving them towards where you want the relationship to go. So you're meeting them where they are and you're bringing them along to where you want them to go. The other side of this is really focusing on giving size or last gift amount. And what this allows you to do is be very specific in what you ask from the audience. And so if I'm emailing our $100 donors, I might be asking them to give $150 or $250 this year, or $100 or $300, giving them choices that are really in the range of possibility for what they've said that they're willing to give and support us at, but pushing them further. What it also prevents is from asking your major donors that could give you $1,000 or $10,000 for a $100 gift or a $200 gift. And so it's really focusing on segmentation based on what the gift amount is and the capacity is, and making sure you frame the ask and the content in a way that aligns with that. So if you're an arts organization and you have different levels of giving, you might want to frame your asks at year end to your entry level or kind of micro donors in one specific way, and your major donors, maybe you're presenting them with an appeal that has a larger price tag on it. So maybe it's supporting a capital project or helping to seed a, a future capital project or kind of a scholarship fund, whereas your others, you might just ask for a general gift and showcase how that general gift really impacts people. Help 3 people kind of benefit from the arts next year, and maybe that's $75 or $100. So you can be very specific in your asks. The other thing you can do is segment between first-time donors and returning donors. And so just like I said, cultivating relationships with your donors is like dating. You wouldn't go on a first date or a second date with someone in the same way you would go out with someone that you're married to. So my wife and I go out, and that relationship or that in conversation we're going to have is different than the conversation we had on our second date. And so making sure that you don't over communicate to people that already know about your organization and care and are passionate about it, versus under communicating or exhausting those that might just be trying to figure out what you do. And so you can keep your messages more simple for earlier donors, and you can also talk to your returning donors with more authority and trust because you already have that relationship built, and you're just presenting an opportunity for them to continue their support of your organization's cause and change you're trying to make in the world. Another way is doing donors giving frequency, engagement level of the donor, and also demographics. So demographics is something that's a little bit more difficult if you don't have kind of the database and the background data on your supporters. But if you do, it's something that's really important because how you communicate with the younger generation might be different than an older generation. And maybe you focus more on email with the younger generation, where you still continue to send more of a letter/phone call kind of approach to your older donors and more traditional donors. And what we see is when done effectively, donor segmentation really builds trust and credibility with your audience, which leads to relationships. And we think if you do anything at year end this year, it's not just about raising money this month, but it's about raising money this month from people that are going to continue to support you. And so segmentation is a way for you to kind of nod towards the fact that you want to build a relationship with your supporters. The second aspect, a second tip I'm going to talk about is really spending 50% of your time on your subject line. So I got some feedbacks this morning about an email I sent where I sent a subject line out that said, "Open this?" And the reason I sent the subject line that way was to really kind of use it as an experiment, as a test, to see how that would change the open rates of my emails and make the point that the subject lines of your emails actually matter and that most people aren't going to open your emails. And so when I say spend 50% of your time on your subject line, I really mean it, thinking through what's going to resonate with your audience. What's the best way to get them to open this email and make it stand out from other emails in people's inboxes? So we have a few tips here. And the reason I have this as number 2 is that when I was working in fundraising, we spent an enormous amount of time writing copy for emails. We spent more time designing our emails. And what we spent little to no time on was the subject line. And what blew me away is when fundraising was more about direct mail and direct mail packages, you really thought through what the carrier was that your message was being delivered in, because it needed to stand out amongst the other pieces of mail in the mailbox. I feel like we've kind of stopped focusing on that with email, even though it's the same thing. Like, the only thing someone has to judge your email on versus other emails in their inbox is the subject line. And so focusing and thinking through this and even testing this, sending small samples of emails and just seeing the response rate, or sitting down and just brainstorming 10 or 15 subject lines, which we're going to do at the end of the presentation today, on how you could actually frame your year-end email. So our tips are: keep it short, don't overuse capital letters, posing a question is always great, personalizing with the donor's name if available. And the other thing I didn't include here is actually sending it from a real person. What we've seen in our own research, and even just in the nonprofits that I've worked with, is that when you send an email from a real person instead of your nonprofit's name, you see higher open rates, you see higher response rates. Again, people are looking for relationships. And so if you want your organization to be framed as a brand that they can ignore more easily because it's not personal, then send it from your organization. But if you're looking at a way to say, hey, I'm a person that intimately supports this cause and believes in it and is presenting an opportunity to someone else, it's powerful to send the emails from a real person. Just some quick stats about subject lines. 33% of people choose where to open email by the subject line alone. A few additional tips on crafting a must-open subject line. And a few other things is donate actually decreases the likelihood of someone opening your email. And so using donate now or donate before year end or any of those types of things, they know instantly that you're making it about a transaction and not really presenting them an opportunity and inspiring them to give. A big thing we talk about here at CauseVox is something called the community-driven fundraising methodology. And what we believe is that you're not going to convince anybody to give to you. You have to inspire your community to actually become a supporter. And so when you use words like this that are really focused on a transactional relationship versus a human and personal relationship, you see negative results. And that really leads into the third point, which is make your emails more human. And so ensuring your emails sound personal will actually improve how someone responds to your email. If they feel like one in a bunch, then they're less likely to take action. It's this idea that if I'm standing in a crowd and the speaker is talking, they're talking to the crowd, and I know that. And so the likelihood that I'm going to respond is less. And so if we communicate in a way, sorry about that. If we communicate in a way that is similar, where we are not writing to one person, then it's less likely that they're going to respond. So even though you're writing your emails for year end to a larger group of people, so you know that you're going to write it to a list of 100 people or 1,000 people or even 20,000 people, depending on the size of your organization, the email should be written as though it's written one-to-one. Write like there's only one person reading your email, because there is. Because when your people on your email list or your supporters or even your prospects, when they receive that email, they're reading it as a one-to-one communication. And so ensuring it sounds like that and you're really speaking to them and presenting an opportunity for them to be inspired to support your cause and the change you're trying to make in the world is going to be super important during year end. And we've seen huge shifts in kind of results when you just write your email as though you're writing to one person. The fourth thing might be a little controversy, because I know there is some more marketing and communications folks and creatives that are on the presentation today. But one of the debates that I remember getting into frequently when I was in fundraising was over design. And how should we design the email? Or, oh, the design of the email doesn't look right, or we don't really like that design, or we don't like how, that color doesn't work, or this, that, and the other. And I don't want to say that design isn't important, but what I've seen, especially in email communication, is that the purpose of the email is more important than the design of the email. So if design gets in the way of the purpose, then design is the problem. And so what I always say is that purpose should be over design. And so if the purpose of your email is to send them a photo that's going to inspire them or showcase the impact of your organization, include photos. That's great. That's really important. If the purpose of your email is to communicate to them in a personal way and invite them to read a story, make sure that you accomplish that purpose. And so ensuring that your purpose doesn't get lost in the design is crucial at year end. And what we see is that the more people are reading emails on mobile devices, the less these comprehensive, complex designs, especially kind of these 2-column newsletter style emails, are really not as effective as kind of single column text primary emails that really showcase your cause, communicate effectively, and drive home what you want them to do. And so purpose over design is going to help you boost your year-end email results. The fifth one is another crucial point, and that is get to the point. And so I have a tendency to use lots of words when I communicate. And it's something that I have to work on because I over communicate. Some would say that's to kind of compensate for maybe my lack of clarity on what the point is. But others would just say, I just love talking. I'm a verbal person. I love typing and I love writing and writing long form type communication. But when you're writing emails, what we've seen and what others have shown is that getting to the point sooner than later, because people are busy, they're full of distractions. And so they're always looking for a way to get out. Our brains naturally try to remove obstacles or remove friction. And so if your email just drones on or your email just looks really long and is complicated, it gives people an out to say, oh, I'll come back to that. And that's the last thing you want because someone coming back to your email is so unlikely. The fact that you got them to open your email is a huge success, let alone getting them to come back to your email. And so also keeping your email short and to the point, especially in a mobile driven world where more people are reading on mobile, is how do you communicate the point and tell them what you want them to do and get them to take action very, very quickly. The sixth point to help increase your year-end email results is to make sure it's easy to give. And this has a little bit to do with email, but it also has to do with your online donation page and how you actually process donations for your organization. And so the first step is to making it easy for people to give is that if you're asking someone to donate to your organization or asking them to support or to take action, make sure it's very clear and obvious what they need to do. And so keeping it simple and what the call to action is, including, a hyperlink text so it's very clear like, hey, here's the copy, here's what we want you to do, here's the action we want you to do. If you want to include a button to make it easy as well, but also know that some buttons or images won't show up, or people have privacy set up where images won't show up. And so don't depend just on an image to be the only way to get from your email to your website. Because potentially there's some people that read emails without images enabled are not going to be able to take action. And so I always recommend to make sure that there's some hyperlinked copy or hyperlinked text in your email that also links to the call to action that you have. And so making it really easy. The next thing is just knowing that more people are reading their emails on mobile devices. You want them to take action and they go to your donation page, and your donation page, they can't actually give a donation on mobile. That's a huge red flag, and that's a huge problem that's going to impact the results that you have at year end. And so making sure that you even personally yourself walk through your donation process. Give $1, give $5, but walk through the process someone would have to take on desktop. So on your laptop, open the email, click donate, go through the whole process and actually check out. Go through the whole entire process to make sure that there's no friction that's unnecessary or that you ran into along the way. And then do it on your phone and make a donation on your phone. It's crucial that you make sure that entire process all the way through, not just from getting from the email to your donation page, that's sometimes where we stop, but actually running that all the way through to make sure it's very, very easy for them to take action. And if your year-end emails aren't about raising money, just still, whatever the call to action is, making sure they can actually accomplish that on both a laptop and a desktop is going to be crucial to your success. The seventh tip is talking about timing. So when sending emails, the time of day is almost as important as the message itself. So when sending your organization's message, keep in mind that early mornings or evenings are typically optimal. And so that could change based on the demographics of your supporter community. But thinking well about when you're sending emails and the process it's going to take. So if you're asking someone to donate, it might be better to send those emails to them when they have more time to actually go through that process and not in the middle of the workday. Sometimes it's easier for us to send emails during the workday because we're at work and we're pushing out emails. But scheduling emails at crucial times when you think that your donors are more likely to respond is super important. And so early mornings are really helpful statistically. Even late evenings are statistically will drive more opens and results as well, just because people are on their phones a lot more during those times. And what we see is even between like 8 and 11 o'clock at night, People are on their phones, they're checking social media, they're looking around. So sending emails even into the evening hours is really crucial as well. There's a lot of best practices on when you should send emails, but really at the end of the day, those are just benchmarks and ideas. It's important that you test things, which we're going to talk about as one of the tips as well. Someone asked this, or a few people asked this during the questions pane already, is how many emails should I send and when should I send emails? Your supporters are really busy, especially during the month of December. And so you're going to need to send more emails than you think you should send. And so if last year you sent 6 emails, send more emails. If you typically send 1 email, send more emails. And the reason is that you're going to get sick of your message before your supporters do, because most likely they're not going to see all of your messages, especially because of how much competition there is for your inbox. And so sending more emails typically results in more results. And so at my organization, we probably sent somewhere around 10 or so emails during the month of December. That might differ from you and your organization and what you're comfortable doing, but definitely making sure that at least 3 times between December 27th and December 30th, you're sending emails to your supporters and presenting an opportunity and inspiring them to give. So not just saying give now because it's year end, but giving them a reason to give and inspiring them to do so, but also presenting them a vehicle to do that, which is through email. This is one that's a little controversy, which is on resending emails. So anywhere from 50 to 80% of the people on your email list will not open your emails. And there's a lot of reasons why, and there's a lot of ways to improve that. But one of the tactics that's seen significant results in the last year or so, and there's been some research on this, is that actually resending emails at different times of the day to almost resurface the email in your supporter's inbox can help improve the overall open rate of your emails. And so what this looks like is sending an email out to your supporter base and then revising the subject line and resending it to anybody that didn't open your email at a later point in time. And so if you send out an email in the morning, then you send out an email in the evening, you can actually only resend the email to those that didn't open your email. And overall, you'll get more people to open the email than you would if you only relied on one send. The 10th tip is really to test. So there's a lot of different ways you can test, but even in the most simplest manner, one of the things that you can do, even if you don't have a sophisticated, marketing, email marketing software or anything like that, is just by sending out a small batch of emails. So if you have 100 people on your list, send it to 20 people and just see what happens. Or send out an email to 20 people with one subject line and 20 people with another subject line and just see. You can even manually test. There's a lot other ways to do A/B testing with marketing software, things like MailChimp or Constant Contact. There's a lot of different ways that you can do A/B testing so that you actually improve the results. Because if you test emails, you can identify not just what your opinion was of what was best, or your executive director's opinion, or your board's opinion, but rather what actually drove results. And this kind of goes back again to purpose over design, but in this case, it's purpose over opinions. And so there's a lot of opinions on what should be in your emails and what shouldn't be in your emails, and what subject lines we should use, or who the email should come from. And so the sooner you kind of implement a testing mindset into your email, especially during year end, the more likely you'll get to what works best for you and your organization. And so things to test are who the email's from, what the subject lines are, how long the emails are, whether it's image heavy or just text based, and then also the time of the day. And so all of those things have benchmarks of when is optimal to send emails or how long the email should be. But at the end of the day, until you really test it with your supporters and your audience, it's all anecdotal. Oh, I don't know where the 11th one was, but the 11th one for us is peer-to-peer. And so one of the things we've seen is that in fundraising emails, it's always from the organization to the supporters. And as a fundraiser, you think that's really the only way. But what we've seen effective is actually when organizations recruit others to send emails to their community and friends, even if that's just your board members. But again, the more personal the email sounds and the more personal the email feels, the more likely someone is going to respond from that. And so, in the simplest form, even if you're a small organization with only 1 or 2 people on your team, you may have 4 to 10 or 15 board members. And so, what we've seen successful is to give the board members a list of supporters that they can personally send a message to and invite them to give during year end. So, it's an added touch point during year end to supporters that you know you want to give to your organization, and you can invite them to do that. Another way is taking it a step further and using a peer-to-peer fundraising software like Cosvox to invite people to actually create fundraising pages so they can send out a link during year end to their friends, family, and community and invite them to support your organization, like Ginny and Angie did in this visual here. So it's a great way to kind of, again, break free from kind of the status quo of how emails are usually sent and start recruiting your key supporters or advocates to actually send emails on your behalf during year end. Another important thing to improve your email results is actually to track performance. And so if you haven't tracked performance historically, it's important to do that well now, because you may not increase your results this year, but by tracking performance well, you can improve your emails in the future. And the last bonus is just don't forget thank you. And that thank you doesn't have to wait till January. Thank you should be immediate, if really as soon as possible when supporters give to your organization, because a thank you can also lead to further donations from your organization. So don't just wait till January to thank your supporters. If someone gives tomorrow, or they give on the 15th or the 20th or the 30th of December, sending a thank you email and maybe inviting them to invite their friends and family to support the organization as well is a great way to increase the overall results that you have at year end. Don't wait. Really focus on thanking donors and thanking them as soon as possible, because that's going to result in them being more likely to recommend your organization to their friends, family, and community, helping you acquire new donors and raise more at year end. We're going to talk through a few subject lines briefly, and then we're going to dive into Q&A. So there's a few tips that we have. The first one was pose a question. And so here's a few subject lines that you can use. Can you help me out? Put someone's first name. I have a question. Will you help someone in your supporters community? So we used to support children in Uganda in education programs. And so we could send an email that says, hey, will you help Robert in Uganda? Personalizing it, focusing on the impact, and really using the beneficiary's name as a symbol of the impact and support that a individual could have at year end. Can I have a moment? When was the last time you made someone smile? Don't think you have enough to make a difference. How many lives can you save with $50? These are great ways for you to customize and adapt for your organization, your cause. The second thing that we focus on is how can you promote generosity in your subject lines? Did you forget someone on your holiday list? Last minute gift ideas, the best gift, really focusing on the idea of giving to charity instead of giving gifts during the holidays. Lots of ways that you can promote generosity and positive messages, especially in kind of the ecosystem we live in today where there's always negative messages flying at us. Generosity actually stands out. And so using the subject line to express generosity is a great way to stand out amongst someone's inbox. Other ways that you can promote opens with your subject line is to convey urgency. We're so close, hours left to give, help us reach our goal, time is almost up. Great way to drive action immediately and really help push people to take action right away. Other ones that aren't on here are just using things like today or tomorrow, or we missed you yesterday, or I hope you see this. There's other ways to use the subject line to really talk personally to the supporter and convey what you're trying to do in a very short and specific manner. So those are just some subject line ideas and tips on how you can really improve results during year end. One of the big things I would remind you to do is just 3 tips if you take nothing away, except for these, is to really be human in your year end emails. How can you write emails in a way that sounds personal, that's communicating one-to-one, you're being very clear in the action you want them to take, and you're segmenting to help identify the relationship that you have, and even presenting it in a way that aligns with how they previously engaged with your organization. Hey, Sally, thank you so much for coming to our race in the spring, and then present your case for support during year end. The second thing is to share stories. So remember, you're never going to convince someone to give to you. Even if you do it, they're not going to necessarily be a long-term supporter. So you really need to focus on inspiration. How do you inspire someone in your community to support your cause during year end? And how we've seen best to do that is through the use of story. The third thing is thinking outside the box and asking others to do something. And so think about how your board members could actually send emails on your behalf to supporters, personalizing your emails, asking your key advocates or your bigger donors to invite their friends and families to support your organization during year end. Don't just think, how do I actually send more emails myself so that we can drive increased results during year end? But how could we recruit others to send emails? Inviting people to do something, thanking people as soon as they do give, and inviting them to share through a personalized email with their friends and family, and maybe giving them some recommendations on how to go about doing that. And so really inviting other people in your community to do something on behalf of your cause during year end is a key way to increase your results. So now we're going to spend the next 5 or 10 minutes really diving into questions that you have as an audience, or maybe questions that you had that I didn't really dig into throughout the presentation, or maybe specific to what you're thinking about during year end. So I'm going to take a look at some of the questions now, but feel free to drop those questions in the questions pane. We'll spend, like I said, the next 5 to 10 minutes really digging into those. And for those that maybe have to kind of go because you have something going on now, know that I'll be sending you the recording and the slides of today's presentation following the training, so that you can really dig into those, share them with your team, and even reference them as you design and develop your year-end emails. So I'm taking a look at some of the questions, and Jessica asks, do you have any tips for sending emails to get pledges in the door or lapsed donors to update their information? So Jessica, I think many of the tips that I shared today would also be effective to accomplish gaining pledges or even really targeting lapsed donors. And so if you know that your donors haven't given to you in the past year, so let's say they gave to you in 2016, but they haven't given to you yet in 2017, how can you segment them off and actually write a specific message to them? When it comes to pledges, I think it's just being able to communicate effectively why someone should pledge to give and what the difference of pledging to give, or why you would want them to pledge to give in the new year or even over a longer period of time, rather than just giving immediately. What we see is that December, because most charitable giving takes place in December, is that people are looking for ways to give now. And so depending on what you're trying to do with those pledges would really depend on how you communicate that message. But how you would increase your results would still be using the tips that we provided today. Angela asked, what was your number 11? Angela, I am not sure where my 11 slide went. So I apologize about that. I had included some bonus slides, and it looks like I changed 11 to bonus. And so those were, the peer-to-peer was really number 11. So I didn't call it number 11, but that's the number 11 slide, was the peer-to-peer. How do you invite others in to actually email their friends, families, or even your supporters? So like I said, board members, giving them a list of supporters to email on your behalf is a great way to increase your results during year end. So Julie asks, how does an annual report or year overview that demonstrates your work fit or not with year-end giving appeals? So Julie, I think the important part here is making sure that your annual report and your year overview doesn't just tell people what you did, but rather showcases it, or the angle that you present it in is based on what they did to help you or to help accomplish what you're sharing. And so showcasing how they were actually the hero in the story, which got to your impact. And yeah, many others were too, but when you're communicating to them and showcasing the overview of the impact that your organization has made or the change that you've made in the world this year, making sure you always frame it at year end as how this individual was or could be a part of that. And so using success as a demonstration of what someone could be a part of is a great way to drive results. So saying, here's a story of the impact that we have had. However, if we don't have people step up and contribute like you, we won't be able to, or this other children like the children that we shared in the story in their community won't be able to go to school. And so making sure you use success as a way to celebrate and kind of incentivize action, however, not leaving out what the problem case is or what does failure look like. So you kind of want to take them on that journey and say, if someone takes action, this is what success looks like. If no one takes action, this is what failure looks like. So leveraging your annual review or your report to do that well is something that could be great. Terry asks, she was inherited a database, happens to the best of us, and it sounds like it's kind of a mess. The best thing to do is to really think, kind of go back to the basics. Like, how can you think about maybe even just looking at what they gave to you last or their gift amount and segmenting by simple things and kind of ignoring some of maybe the past segmentation that seems to be over segmented. So thinking through what is the foundational ways that we could segment this, that we would have something unique to say that would represent the relationship that we have with our supporters. Kayla asks, would you segment out anyone who gave recently near end of year, especially Giving Tuesday donors? Absolutely not. So I think there's a misconception that if someone gives to you, you should not appeal to them again. That is not the case. However, there's a caveat there, is that if someone gave to you on Giving Tuesday, what you need to do is make sure that you report back the impact that group of people that gave recently is going to have, and make sure that they feel thanked and appreciated, and you've kind of closed the loop on their support before asking them again. The mistake people make is that they ask and then they ask and then they ask, and people give and give and give and then get burnt out. What we saw as effective is as long as we close the loop, and we tried to close the loop as fast as possible on supporters giving, so making sure that they gave, they were thanked, they were acknowledged, and we showed them a symbol at least of the impact that they were going to have, then it was okay for us to come back and almost showcase how they can keep giving, how they can be part of more impact that your organization's having. And sometimes what's interesting is that you'll see that people that give recently are actually more likely to give to your organization again, especially at year end, than others that haven't given recently. So it's not a recency issue. It's much more about have you closed the loop? Robin asks, my board thinks we send too many emails. I send way fewer than what you recommended, Noah. What can I say to convince the board that it's important to send more emails? So I'll include a link to some stats on this. But what we see is the more emails you send, the more results you'll have. And I think the thing is that the people that are close to your organization are going to feel more burnout about the messages than the actual supporters. And I think as long as you do email well, and you use some of the advice and implement some of the best practices we talked about, it won't feel overwhelming, because what you're doing is you're keeping the attention, you're pushing forward, you're presenting and inspiring people. You're not asking, convince. So it's really focused on this idea of how can you communicate effectively during year end, consistently, and continue to present an opportunity to give and a case for that. And that's where I think most people fail at year end, is they kind of write one email and they send it 6 or 7 times. And it's the exact same email. It's just like, donate it to us so that we can keep living, or that we can keep making the impact we're having, or help us start 2018 out on the right foot. I don't think that works. But I think if you use some of the best practices that we have, you send more emails during year end, you will raise more money. I think also you might just need to say, hey, board, like, I understand your concerns, but we need to do it this way based on best practices that we've seen, and then we'll just compare the results. And so testing again is something that's going to drive, or it's going to deflate opinions and kind of some of these internal dialogues is results and testing. And so the sooner you can actually test the ideas, the better. And so if there's always this constant dialogue of like, oh, we send too many emails, we send too many emails, I think the thing is, okay, what if we sent more emails? Let's see what the results are and see if we're happy about the results. So I think if you can get on common ground about what the goals are at your end, and then they should trust you to know what's best for you to actually make that happen. Kayla, I would not remove those donors. So I'm sorry I miscommunicated early. So if people gave recently, I would not remove them from your year end giving. I would still send them your year end giving appeals. So that's all the time we have for questions today. But know that I'm going to send out the recording and I'm going to send out the slides to you all after the presentation today. But Rob's actually going to be joining us now to really showcase how you can actually use Cosvox to increase your year-end fundraising as well, and showcase how some of our customers have actually used it as a landing page for their emails. So how do you get someone out of their inbox into your website that has less distractions? And so inboxes are full of distractions. And so how can you move them from a distraction-filled environment to an isolated way where you can actually tell a story and you can inspire people to give? And so Rob's going to come on and share a little bit more about Cosvox and how our customers have actually done that well. Rob?
Hey, thanks, Noah. Thanks for all the tips on email marketing, especially for year end. As we move into December, what is it, tomorrow, later this week? You're going to be sending tons of emails. Your donors are primed to give. So really excited to share with you a few examples of how other organizations and some of our customers over here at Cosvox have really used our platform as a destination for their donors to go to. A lot of times I look at my own inbox, especially on earlier this week on Tuesday, I got tons of emails from organizations that I support, organizations that I follow. And a lot of those emails, honestly, didn't get read because I just got overwhelmed. I got so many emails, too many organizations to support during Giving Tuesday. So one of the things that we try to do here at Cosvox is to take your donors away from this distraction-filled environment, whether it's social media or whether it's through their email inbox, and really direct them into a place where they can feel compelled to give, as well as to get immersed in your story. So for example, I've just pulled out a few. I'm just going to show you my own campaign. So I'm a board member of the Non-Technology Network. Every year they run a conference called NTC, the Nonprofit Technology Conference, and it's a good place to learn about fundraising, about marketing, as well as we focus on professional development for nonprofits. So as part of my board member campaign, I have my own personal fundraising page. So instead of directing all of your donors and supporters directly to a generic just donation page where it's very transactional, where they may get lost in a sea of web browsers and web windows, or if they just mark their email as archive or they delete it. What you want to do, especially for year-end fundraising, is to write a compelling call to action, send it out through whatever channel you have, and to get your donors to a campaign site like on Cosvox. So for example, this is a campaign site that I co-created with the executive director of the Nonprofit Technology Network, and this is our board member campaign, where we're using this as a way to engage audiences in order to drive them to raise more funds. So with Cosvox, what you can easily do is you can create your own campaign sites. You can easily keep track of fundraising goals. People can see what is the urgency towards the $10,000 that we want to raise, as well as they can easily see what the impact is that can be created in real time based on their donation. Now, for us, for every $500 donated, it equals one additional scholarship that funds somebody at a nonprofit to be able to attend our conference so they can get the professional development they need to scale their impact. In addition to that, on every Cosvox campaign site that you can create, you also do have a days remaining counter. So kind of these three different tactics that we built into CauseVox allow you just to easily drive your donors to action, as well as to help them see the impact that you can create. It's more than just supporting you guys for general funds. It's more than just supporting you guys in 2018. It's really about helping your donors really understand what they can do and how they can impact and what the dollar would do in order to drive the mission forward. On our CauseVox campaign sites, you can easily design this just within a few minutes. Just no coding required. There's no IT person required. You can really just do this yourself. I know we're coming up in December, and you may not have a lot of time to tap into your IT person or your web designer developer. So you can easily just use CauseVox to throw up something really quickly and to drive donations very quickly as well. On all of our campaign sites, we also do have the ability for what we call peer-to-peer fundraising. I know I mentioned this as a way just to get your supporters and leverage them and leverage their audience to drive more traffic, more donations to your campaign site. Beth Cantor, she's also a board member at N10. She's a nonprofit guru, so she's a huge influencer, probably by far the biggest influencer in the nonprofit space. So this is her own personal fundraising page. So what she was able to do is to easily use CauseVox to create her own personal page, tell her story, and then drive her audience through her blog, through her social media channels, through her friends and family, in order to drive more donors to the N10 fundraising campaign. So you can easily do this as well. You can leverage your supporters, so you don't have to just depend on your email list or social media list. You can really leverage your audience to do this for you. What we're really seeing on CauseVox is that the organizations that use peer-to-peer fundraising, they tend to raise twice as much as the campaigns that just focus on a donation page or just focus on typical crowdfunding without this community-driven component. So as you're focusing on leveraging emails, you might want to think about how you can get your supporters to also leverage their emails in order to drive more donors to your organization. Now, it's super easy to get set up. There's a whole interface for that. We do have a dashboard that allows your individuals. So for example, I have my own personal fundraising page here. I can easily go in, I can change my page details. I can easily share updates as well. And then I can easily customize my fundraising page appeal as well. So your supporters like Beth, like me, we can easily set up these personal pages and manage this directly from within the CauseVox interface. We just released a whole new interface a few weeks ago, and what we've seen so far is that the users using this new interface, they actually interact with it twice as much as before. So there's a lot more engagement, which means a lot more fundraising activity, which at the end of the day means more dollars raised for all of our customers. Now, in terms of setting up CauseVox as an administrator for your nonprofit, you can easily create an account. Now, once you create an account, you can easily set up your fundraising campaign. So for example, within our admin interface here, we do have a design tab that allows you just to customize your CauseVox campaign site very easily without that coder. So for example, if I wanted to design a campaign site, I'll just go and upload a logo. I can change, let's say, the header background so it better matches my logo that I put in. And even if I wanted to, I can put in, let's say, some type of video. So I can put in any type of video that I want to, whether it's a Vimeo video or a YouTube video. I'm gonna put in a YouTube one over here. And then I can easily then design my campaign site very easily as well. So as you can see, no coding required, super easy to use. You can just point and click in order to change your CauseVox campaign sites. Support, let's do it. So super easy. Not only can you design the campaign sites with no coding, you can even turn on some really powerful settings in CauseVox. So instead of just directing your donor supporters via email to just a typical generic donation page, then you can easily have something that's really vivid, but then you can also build in something really cool. So recurring donations, you can easily enable on CauseVox so that your donors, when they see your campaign, instead of just being presented a one-time donation, they can actually opt in into a monthly recurring donation. On our platform as well, as you're running your year-end fundraising campaign, you guys have tons of things to do. So another big part of our platform is helping you automate your back office. So instead of having to manually send donation receipts to each one of your individual donors, you can easily just automate it in Cosvox, and then we automatically send it out for you. So super easy, so saves you a ton of time. But also, on a platform, instead of having to depend on, let's say, your web developer to put in additional questions into your donation form, you can easily add those into Cosmos. So let's say you want to add in a question about how someone wants to connect with your organization in 2018. You can easily put in that question and help them answer it via email or online or through mail, direct mail. Then you can easily match what your donors want, how your donors want to hear from you with their specific channel. So you can look at that info in Cosbox, we'll make it super easy. And then just very lastly here, as you're running your fundraising campaign, as you're directing, using email marketing for it as well, we allow you just to have really easy interface just to manage all your donors, see activity, and then run your fundraising campaign super easily. Now, if you're looking for more of a detailed walkthrough of our platform, or if you have questions on how you can use Cosvox for year-end fundraising, or even for your spring campaign in 2018, feel free to go to our website over here at cosvox.com. Tons of resources over there. You can also ping us directly. So if you wanted to sign up for a demo, or if you wanted to kind of look at some of our resources over here, you can easily go in, find and browse different things that are going on, different fundraising resources, tips, case studies. So feel free to browse our website. And then very lastly over here, we do have our pricing page that kind of lists all of our pricing. You can always contact us via contact sales or this little chat button over here that allows you just to send in questions to our Cosvox team. So I'll be happy to do a one-on-one demo with you. If you guys are looking for that, feel free to just chat us in, and I'll be happy to set up some time on the calendar this week or next for that. But in the meantime, I wish you guys the best in terms of year-end fundraising, as well as leveraging emails and to really drive towards your fundraising goals. If you guys do have any questions for me, feel free to chat it in, or feel free to contact us after this webinar. In the meantime, I'm going to just hand it over to Noah just to wrap up the webinar today.
Hey, thanks, Rob. I appreciate you sharing. Like Rob said, we're so grateful that you guys joined us, and we do hope that this presentation really helps you think well about how you use email to drive results at year end. We know that each of you are fighting for a change in our world that matters, and we're here to really help you be successful. So feel free to reach out to us with any questions. I'll be sending out the slides and the recording in just a little bit this afternoon, so you can review that again or share that with anyone on your team that would benefit from today's presentation. Thank you guys so much, and have a good rest of your day.